Hello, this is Professor Brown-Sederberg, and I'd like to just demonstrate one solution, one of many solutions, to our Chapter 2 Programming Project number 7. And what that programming project wants us to do is to write a program that reads a line of text and then displays the line, but with the first occurrence of the word hate changed to love. And for example, if we had a dialogue of enter a line of text, the user enters I hate you, we would print to the screen I have rephrased that line to read, and we'd print to the screen then I love you. So what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate strings, and once again we're just dealing with the first occurrence of the word hate, our offending word. So here we have a solution. Now what we've done is named this class C2PP7_JBS, and our class begins here with this curly bracket and ends here with this. We've established our main method with this public static void main string args, and our main method begins here and ends there. We've also imported java.util.scanner. Remember, we're going to be getting something from the user, so we must import the class scanner that's within the library util so that we can use the methods of that class scanner. And what we do in our first line of our main method is we do indeed declare that we'll have an instance of the class scanner we'll call keyboard. We then create that instance with the keyword new, we repeat the type, and we pass this argument system.in. We're passing that argument to the constructor, so when we make this instance, we will have associated with the name keyboard the physical keyboard of our computer. Now I've also declared three strings, user input, first substring, and last substring, and you note that when I declare a variable of type string, I have an uppercase S. Now a string is a very special kind of variable. It's not a primitive value variable, that is, it's not an int or float or long. It's one that we can decompose. We can break into pieces. You see, a string is made up of one or more characters. It's treated as a whole. And a string, as an instance of a class, and that's what it is, every string is an instance of the class string, it can call the methods of the class string. And we're going to look at some of those methods. So here we've declared these three strings, and here we've declared a variable of type int that we've called starting index. So the beginning of our dialog is that we ask the user to enter a line of text, and they do so, and we grab it with next line, a method of the class scanner that we can call through this keyboard, the instance of the class scanner. And what next line does as a method, as a tool, it grabs the next line entered by the user, goes up to that return key, and returns back that string as entered by the user. And here we assign the value returned by the call to this method. And we do so with this assignment operator. We assign this the right value to the space on the left. So into the space user input goes the string entered by the user upon our request. Now here I put into the string starting in, I put into this variable of type int called starting index. Remember, starting index is an int. What I've put into that is what's returned back when user input, the string entered by the user, calls the method index of and passes it this string hate. And we know it's a string because it's within quotation marks. So this method index of will return back the position in the calling string of the passed string. So this will return back the place in the string user input where the word hate starts. Now, a string is made up of one of more characters. The characters of a string are indexed. They have positions, and those positions start at 0. So the first character in a string has a position value of 0. The second character in a string has a position value of 1. Now, we've seen the method length of the class string, and it returns back the number of characters in a string. The last character of any string is always the length of that string minus 1. If I have a word like hate, it's 4 characters in length. Length will return back the value 4. But the positions of that string are 0 for the H, 1 for the A, 2 for the T, and 3 for the E. Those are the indexes of the characters. And this is important for us to understand, because here I am going to call this method index of. It's going to return back the position in the string that called it, that's user input, where this word hate begins. So the index of the character H in that string that called the method. It'll return back that int and save it into this variable spaced starting index. I'll then use starting index here in this line. And in this line, what I want to do is I want to get the substring, the characters in the user's input that begin at the very beginning of the string but go up to but don't include the word hate or any of its characters. So I am calling the method substring. That is, the user input, that string, call the method substring. And this method will take 2 arguments. I pass it this argument, an int, and it takes 2 ints, 0, and this argument, starting index, that I also know is an int. And what substring will do when passed 2 arguments will return back the substring of the calling string that begins at the first character, or the first position passed in, and goes up to but does not include the position of the second index passed in. So this will start at position 0 and go up to but not include the position that's the starting index, and it'll give me the substring that starts at 0 and goes up to but does not include whatever the value is of starting index, those characters in those positions. I'm going to call substring again, and it's going to return a value to me. Just as here I called substring, it returned a value, a string, and I put it into first substring. So that first substring is from the very beginning of my substring up to but not including the first character of the word hate. Here I'm calling substring again. The user input, the string, is calling substring, a method. Here you'll note they were only passing 1 argument. Substring is a method that's what we call overloaded. You can pass it 2 ints or 1. When you pass it 2, it starts at the first position and goes up to but does not include the second. If I pass it 1 value, 1 int, it starts at that position and goes all the way to the end of the string that calls it. So here I say give me the substring that begins at the position that's the beginning of the offending word, that starting index, remember, where hate started, and move down 4 positions. So go to the beginning of the word hate, that's in essence what we're saying, move down 4 positions and give me the rest of the string, go to the end of the string. So that's what I'll have in last substring. So now I have these 2 pieces, the part of the string that's up to but not including the word hate, and then the part of the string that begins after hate and goes to the end. And so now I very simply print to the screen through this system.out.println. I've rephrased that line to read, and I pass now to println the value stored in first substring, concatenate the word love, and then concatenate the value in the last substring. So I'll print out the value in first substring, the word love, and the value in last substring. Let's compile this, and we run it. And let's say that I enter, I hate the Yankees. As I enter, it'll return back, I have rephrased that line to read, I love the Yankees. And so it's replaced that word hate with the word love. Now, I knew that my offending word, hate, was 4 characters long, so I could use 4 here. If I had a different word here that was more than 4 characters in length, this wouldn't work correctly. So what I could do is I could change this. Instead of 4, I could use a variable and save that variable up here as a string. So I could create another variable here. I'll call it offending word, and here I'll give it the value of hate. Now instead of passing to index of a real string, quoted as it is, I'll pass it the name of my variable, and instead of passing this the hard-coded length of my offending word, I will add to starting index the offending word dot length. That is what's passed back when I call the method length, I being the offending word. This will return back the length of that word. Now let me change this hate to C, the word C, S-E-E. Let me compile, and I'll enter in, let me run it. Here I'll enter I see the ocean, and it will change that to I love the ocean. So here I'm not dependent on a specific string, but I've made it a little more sophisticated, so any string, if I just change that value, it'll look for any string. I can change it and not have to go in and change that hard-coded 4 that I had here. You'll make your programs more sophisticated this way as we progress, but what I want you to see is here we're manipulating strings, and so we have a string entered by the user. We are finding the position at which a string begins. We're returning that back here. We're using index of. We're getting a substring using the method substring, passing it 2 values, so we know it begins at the first value, goes up to but does not include the second, returns back that substring. And then I'm getting another substring here going from a position to the end of the string that calls the method. I then simply concatenate those two together, putting the string love in between. So here we've looked at strings, the manipulation of string, and the use of some of the common methods that we have available to us as we manipulate strings. Thank you.